Erin Port. It is a total joy to have you on For Real. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, like I said, I'm glad to be back in the saddle with you.
Let's go.
Kind. Giddy up.
You're so kind. You are a kind person to me. And I also feel like since we're basically neighbors, we probably live about 20 minutes apart, 30 minutes apart, that if I absolutely crash and burn in this conversation, you will so kindly pick me up and tell me it's okay. We can keep going. So thank you for being that person to me. It was an easy ask and an easy hope that you would join me today. First, I have to say, the first time we met, Erin, it was, we had to whisper. Do you remember this?
Yes, we did. Okay. And we're not good whisperers.
I kept thinking we'd get kicked out. So you and I were both booked for little tiny segments on a local TV program, local live TV. First of all, why don't you tell me about this? Because you do a lot of live TV. I want to know how you really feel about it, because I have feelings.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Okay, you might not agree. I love it.
You love it. I
love it.
That's amazing. Why do you love it? It's so scary.
No, I don't know. I love it. It is so fun. And I just always tell people, because my kids are like, Mom, you are cringe when you're on TV doing weird things and games and wearing funny costumes. And I said, you know what? I always envision somebody sitting in their hospital bed and we are the bright spot to their day.
Okay,
and
see.
Yeah.
You're again, nicer human than I am. I go to my most insecure places and think, I'm sure I have spinach in my teeth. I'm positive the spinach is in my teeth. And you don't even think about the spinach. You just go right in.
But here's the thing. I think the people I want to hang out with are like, hey, she's got spinach in her teeth. She's my people. She's my people.
It's so true. Well, hats off to you. I actually I do enjoy that. I enjoy that idea. I usually get nervous beforehand, and then when the camera's on, I'm okay, because it's our friend Megan and she's lovely. Right. But I'm telling you, you have a way more difficult job because Megan just asked me about like book stuff. You have to make stuff. You were that day, I think, making some spread of, I don't even remember what, some party, and you're ready to go and you have to do things with your hands while you're talking to, I'm in awe of you. That's all I'm saying. Well done.
But that day, so I found the photo. I showed it to you before we went live.
Yeah, show it if you have it. It's
okay. Okay, I'll pull it up.
Our YouTube people would see
Here we are. Oh, here we are. There we are.
Whispering.
We were whispering, but Megan said to us, you two should be friends. You have a lot in common.
Oh, I
Do you remember her saying that?
Yes.
And then she said, you were there to promote your latest book. Mm-hmm. And I looked up the date. It was 2024. I had signed with my agent, but we were just about ready to go to publishing houses to put it out. And I just remember you like put your hands on my shoulder and you looked at me in the eye and you're like, it's going to be great. And I needed that. That's who you are to us, Kim. You're just like this breath of fresh air, joy. And I have referenced that so many times when I wanted to give up. I'm like, Kim said it's going to be great. Even though I'm like pushing words out of who knows where. Yeah. And is any of this coherent? But it was so fun to see you kind of like a step ahead of me. I just think sometimes God is so faithful in that of like showing you somebody that's just a little bit ahead of you that like reaches their hand back and says, come with me, I'll show you the way. That's awesome. And so I just want to say thank you.
That is so kind of you to say. It was just the right time and the right moment, if that's what you took from it. I was just stoked. I was stoked to meet you. I was stoked to hear about your book deal or your impending book deal. So I don't know that I was right about it all being great, but your book is great. So that's good. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. But I want to ask you before we begin, there is a spot in your book where you talk about how you moved a ton when you were growing up, that you moved, I think you said every 2 years.
Yes.
So I would love to know how that childhood influences two things. First, your own parenting. You're a parent of 4. And also your love of, and your passion to help people have order. I have a long time ago, I've never told you this, but I had a friend who heard you speak years and years ago, and I have quoted you to myself for years before I met you. And my friend told me that you were at an event and trying to help people get some order in their lives, not in a bossy way, but in a linked arms way. And this is why she loved you so much. I think this is why people connect with you. And you said something about, I'll probably massacre the quote, but you said something like, in order for me to be the keeper of my home, I have to be in my home. I have to physically be in my home. And that, I mean, that's an astute comment that I should know, and I didn't. I remember hearing my friend Anne saying that to me and thinking, yes, I am frustrated right now. I need to just be in my home and take care of my home sometimes. And I was frustrated with the balance of how much I was gone. And so you've been gone. You grew up being gone. So talk to me about that. Talk to me about how that childhood of being gone a lot, and you have a beautiful family, a beautiful relationship with your sister and with your parents. But I want to hear how that might have affected what you do for your work and how you parent your own kids.
Yeah, that's a great question. Nobody's ever asked me that before. And funny enough, people don't know that because it's your childhood. They just assume you've always grown up in Iowa, right? Most people grow up in Iowa and stay in Iowa. And I was just telling a friend this morning, I lived overseas as a child in Switzerland, and they said, I had no idea. But moving every 2 years, there's a lot out of your control. You set up roots and then you pick up and you leave. And so you have to get really good at a couple of things. Number one, putting yourself out there, because I learned at a young age, nobody ever tries to leave you out. They're busy living their lives, and you kind of almost have to insert yourself, which feels very uncomfortable. But you just kind of have to be like, hey, I'm Erin. Do you want to be my friend? And sometimes people will say no, but a lot of times people will say yes. I also think in my home, it gave me clarity on what is a home, right? I am not tied to a structure. I love our home that we live in now. It's lovely, but heaven forbid it burn down tomorrow. The things that matter most to me will move to the next home. And I think moving every 2 years, it just solidified to me what matters most, which is family. And so for me, in my parenting, I really focus on quality time with my kids, intentionality with my kids, those relationships, because it doesn't matter where we are or what we're doing. It's like being together. And that's something my parents really instilled in us at a young age. My dad is famous for saying, and I think it's in the book, it's not good or bad. It's just different. And that's how we operated. And so it was a different childhood, but it really prepared me for my adulthood, because I know this might come as a surprise. I hung on my mom's leg on kindergarten first day, sobbing. I did not want to go to school. I was horribly shy. I barely talked to anybody. And I can't remember if it was like move 4, but some girl came up to me and she goes, are you snooty or are you shy? Like, why don't you talk? And I was like, oh, I'm shy. I'm new. Hello.
Right.
And I just thought, I got to put myself out there. So lots of lessons, lots of lessons.
I love that. I love what you have to say about home. And you are the pro at helping home feel like a safe space. We are at the start of a year. We're recording this in January. And for a lot of people, just the mention of the new year, January 1, makes them break out into hives because there is an intrinsic, or just, I guess, implied overwhelm we feel when someone says, new slate, new year, new you. And this is why I'm excited to have this conversation today, because your entire mojo, Erin Port, is that tiny tweaks are relatively easy and they can change your life. We're going to talk about the tweaks in just a second, but I have a 30,000 foot question for you first, which is, if it's true that tiny tweaks, tiny changes, tiny vector changes, my husband would say, those little bits make such a big difference. Why don't we do that? Why do we need to have coaching on this?
Isn't that the truth? It's because our brains are actually wired for a big solution, right?
Okay.
So I just had a friend the other day. Much like you, she went through the death of her father. She's got some health issues, right? So she's like, I need a life overhaul. I need a life overhaul because everything in her life feels heavy and explosive, right? And so she thinks if I can just get out of this
Yep.
and overhaul my life, I'm going to feel better. Life's going to feel better, right? And I experienced that. I talk about that in the book, that this is not born out of a place of Erin has it all figured out and she's never had a hard day in her life. We brought our youngest son home via adoption in 2019. And we knew he had some special needs. But if you've ever been through the adoption process, 25 months to get him home, I thought, okay, we're stepping into the promised land. No, we were stepping into the desert, right? The wilderness, because he was nonverbal. He weighed 19 pounds. He was malnourished. He needed physical, occupational, and speech therapy. He needed multiple surgeries. And I had so much shame as an Enneagram 3 achiever that I could not get him the care he needed in the time that he needed. Every mealtime, we would spend an hour getting him to eat. He'd vomit it back up. I mean, and again, it felt like life or death. And it was in that season where it just felt like I wanted an overhaul, right?
Yeah.
I can relate to that. And it was one day after a particularly hard feeding session, I cleaned him up, I laid him down for a nap, and I collapsed in the hallway. And I was like, God, I cannot do this. I thought I could. I don't know. I don't have it in me. And I just heard God say, first of all, you weren't meant to do it all on your own. Enneagram 3. And second of all, like, what do you need right now? And that kind of, in that moment, it was when I was like, you know what? I don't have it in me to go big or go home. I just want to crawl under the covers. But like, what is something small right now that could help me? And that first week kind of set me on a trajectory of like, okay, this tiny change gives me evidence that I'm not stuck. Because oftentimes when we want that overhaul, we feel stuck and we think the only solution is a big leap. But what ends up happening is we ricochet right back. And now not only did we not get where we want to go, but we feel like a failure and like we're never going to make a change.
Oh, that's so good. I love this. What do you need right now? I've had a very intense masterclass on that question in the last 6 months. I've just finished doing an Advent study with She Reads Truth. My girls and I do a lot of those together, and I'm an admirer of their work, Amanda and Rachel. But they had for Advent this year, there was a reading every day, and at the end of each reading, the first question, maybe they've done this before, I haven't noticed it before, but at the end of each day's reading, the very first question was, what's on your mind today? And the first time I saw it, I thought, well, this isn't a journal. What am I doing? I just, let's get to the meat of this. And kind of a skipping over of that. And I have realized that is to my peril if I skip over. That actually the experience of prayer and the experience of living my actual life in a way that is more in communion with the God who loves me is that I have to actually answer that question. I have to say to him, here's what's on my mind first. Here's where I am. Here's the dirt where I'm standing. So that is a tender story to me that God would be saying to you, Erin, what do you need? My guess is you probably need a nap. You probably need to drink a little bit more water. You need to call someone and say, I need an hour where I don't hear any crying. I just need 1 hour. It's what a kindness that is that God would say that to you, and what a kindness it is to ourselves when we can just ask that question. I love that. And I love, the overhaul typically doesn't work. So you've written this beautiful book to help us figure out a different way. I love this spot. This is a sweet spot to me where you talk about writing out gratitude. Now, I'm a writer, so I'm like the easiest sell in the world. So I'm not necessarily your Everest here, but talk to the Everest. Talk to the person who says, I don't actually love to write. Can't remember the last time I wrote with anything other than my thumbs on my phone. What is it about physically writing out gratitude? You make a big pitch for this, that writing down with your hand, writing down the things for which you are grateful, that is a game changer. And that's the first thing. That's the first step for you. What's with the writing? And talk to someone who's resistant about that.
Okay, I am. I have a whole paper product line. I tell
I know
people,
you're
I'm
your
like,
target market.
I'm like in for this because and I hold fast to this fact, you are 42% more likely to remember something
Mm,
when you write it down.
I believe
And
it.
it, for me, it's a rewiring of the brain, right? When you're tactiling, writing it down, there's something that goes from your hand to your brain that helps you remember.
Mm,
And we are forgetful creatures.
we sure
We are,
are.
right? I just
Yep.
read in a Bible study the other day of God's provision and how, he fed the five loaves and the two fish, or I always get that backwards. And then the disciples go into the storm and it's stormy and they're like, is God going to help us? And he's like, I just fed you.
Yeah. 25
And
minutes ago.
he
Yeah.
said that
Yeah.
nicely,
Yeah.
but how fast we forget.
Totally, totally, totally.
And here's the thing about gratitude too. I always tell people about the red car theory. This idea of like, our brain,
Yeah.
the amount of information we are filtering on a daily basis. I mean, if we actually comprehended all of it, our brains would explode.
Totally.
So what our brain kindly does for us is it filters out what it doesn't deem is important.
Right.
Okay, that this is important because you buy a red car. Have you ever noticed this? I actually have a white car,
Everyone
white
has a red car.
Suburban. Every single suburban mom has a white Suburban. Like everybody. I didn't know it until I bought it, right? Because my brain filtered it out as noise. It didn't matter until it did.
Mm,
And that's the same with gratitude. When we write it down, it becomes the thing that we look for.
mm.
And I don't know about you, but we have a negativity bias. One thing could go wrong, 99 things could go right. And guess what we focus on? The one thing. So that's why I'm so passionate about writing down gratitude. It's also the breadcrumbs of what brings you joy and happiness. And I don't want to steal your thunder with your questions, but the reason I start with that is because if we simplify for simplification's sake, we are missing the point. God called us to an abundant life. But for a lot of us, if I asked you, what brings you happiness? What brings you joy? I get deer in a headlights look from people,
Hmm.
especially moms who are like in the throes of
Right.
parent. Like, I don't know what brings me happiness. Gratitude, when we start to write those things down, we can
Mm,
look back and we can say, okay, these are the breadcrumbs of my happiness. And I can start to piece together what actually matters to me because awareness is our superpower. And then the second part is simplification. Now we know what matters. We're going to simplify. And now we have space for what matters. And that's
mhm.
why I designed the book the way that I did.
I
And that's
love
all
it.
from asking me why you should write things down. I'm sorry.
No, this is perfect. I think that's the crux that you laid out the foundation of why. This is
Mhm.
not, I don't think that your heartbeat is for readers to think, oh, okay, I need a system. I need
Mm-mm.
a new system. That's not how you live. That's not what's important to you. What seems to be important to you is to help us, to give us a tool to make tiny changes that are all in the same that we're moving in the same direction so that a life of purpose and abundance is where we're headed. So I don't get the feeling that you're really worried about if I color code my drawers. You aren't,
I
right?
I don't.
Okay. Okay.
Although I really appreciated your like your books in the background. I was like, that looks real nice.
That came out of a season where I took over this room from my husband who was using it as a fancy file cabinet. So we could talk about that another time. But yes, it does give me a little bit of joy to have all the red books together. I want to talk to you about a couple tiny tweaks that you made that brought joy and you didn't expect it.
Mm,
One that you mention is that you kind of had to, as your kids have gotten older and they have access to their own devices, the powering down at a certain time has been very powerful for you. And there's this tiny instance where you say that part of switching that very, very small switch, the time during which everyone relinquishes and puts their phones into a charging place and then it helps your brain kind of get ready for sleep. Your kids are growing older. They're
mm,
up later than you are. I identify with this.
mhm.
And I love it that you didn't hesitate to allow them to tuck you in and how
Right?
that has become a sweet part of your night. I love this because I think you've mentioned getting stuck. We get stuck in what we think we're supposed to do, what
Mm,
has worked before. I'm supposed to do this beforehand. I need to stay up until everyone else is in bed. I'm kind of over that now because my kids are ancient and I can't possibly stay up until they go to bed. But I love it that you were open to the tweak. That
Yes.
the different seasons have required different tweaks from you. And so I'm wondering if you have any advice for us in how to be more agile with that. Was that an easy thing for you to say, okay, with every season, we're going to do this a little bit differently? Or is that a learned skill? And if so, how do we learn that skill?
I think so. The whole point I want people to take away from this idea of tiny tweaks is it gets you in the mindset of saying, what can we do to make this a little better? So let me give you an example and I'll go back to the bedtime story. This morning, my kids and we have 2 alarms on my phone, one with a 10-minute warning and one where we exit the door.
Oh, good.
Okay, great.
This is an on-ramp. Yes.
We made this a tiny tweak, right? We gave them some time, whatever. It was still, we couldn't find the hats. We couldn't find the mittens, right? Because I was currently in a tug of war seasonally and we were late. And so I got in the car with my kids and I said, you know what? Today was kind of hard. I'm sorry that things fell apart, right? But what's a tiny tweak we can make tomorrow? And it's getting in that mindset of saying like, it didn't actually work. It used to work. It worked for a long time, but it's not working anymore. What can we do to make a change? And so we decided collectively, the kids and I, that we could move up the alarms 5 minutes, that would give us a little bit of a longer runway in case we missed a hat, right? Without, biting each other's heads off, because that happens. And then we could move along our day, right? And so it's this idea of the whole point I hope that people take away from this book is just this idea that, you know what, if something's not working, I'm allowed the agency to make a change. It's okay. And as my dad, I'm going to quote my dad again. He's going to be so happy I quoted him twice. It's not good or bad. It's just different. And I think the older I get, maybe you can relate to this. It doesn't have to make sense to anyone else except for us. And if it works for us, then that's good enough. Totally. And so the bedtime thing actually came because my friend Emily told me that that's what she did. Because I was lamenting. I was like, okay, we're putting our phones to bed. I want to go to bed. My kids want to stay up. And she goes, I just let my kids tuck me in. So that's the other thing. Sometimes we just need to ask our friends because we can't see the forest through the trees. And we just need to say, hey, what's working for you? We don't have to do everything that everyone else does. But sometimes it breeds inspiration like, oh, okay. So those would be my two ideas. But that idea of like, it's okay. You can change your mind. I don't know. Why do we feel stuck? Like this, I think it strangles things.
Yep. No, totally. I think we're seeing in a broader context that it's okay. It's better for us if we continue to remain curious and ask questions and be willing to change our minds in our homes and elsewhere. Okay, so that's one quick tweak. I have a rapid fire round. Ready?
Okay.
I want to ask you about 3 or 4 different things. These are quick hits. Just give us the quick version of what this has meant to you, what the tweak was, how it's helped your life. Okay. Monotasking.
Yes, that's where you're focusing on one thing at a time. Okay. So your kid's doing your homework, you're trying to make dinner, the spaghetti boils over and your kid writes in pen and you're like, oh, you're supposed to write in pencil. It doesn't end well. Do one thing at a time. I promise you it works so much better. You need to try it to believe it, but I promise you. We have been sold that multitasking is king and it's not.
Good. Time your task. Love this. Just tried this yesterday. Go ahead.
Did you like it?
I loved it, but tell us what it is and then I'll give you my review.
This is one of people's favorites.
Is it really?
It is. And it's because it's so powerful. So we think in our mind, our brain tells us things that are undesirable take longer than we think. So I always tell people how long a task takes. So I share in the book that my friend Sammy was like, oh, I don't want to fold my laundry. I go time it, see how long it takes. It was like 6 minutes. She goes, I cannot believe how little time it took, how much time I spent thinking about it. We spend more time thinking about the task than it takes usually. So time that task.
I love that. In the book, you said, well, how long does it take? She said, forever.
Yeah.
And I can totally identify with that. I think it works for things we love too, actually. So yesterday I had a block of time and it was too short of a block of time to start a new, project or kind of really do some deep thinking. And I get a little restless in the afternoons. And so I thought, well, I'm going to do what Erin tells me to. And I'm going to time how long it takes me to do my loop in my neighborhood. There are a few different cul-de-sacs that I like to do. And I'm just curious. I had a number in my head. Definitely at least 6 minutes shorter than it actually was already established in my head to be. So that gave me great information that if I have 17 minutes, I can do all of the cul-de-sacs in my neighborhood. And the reason that's freeing to me is that I know now a little bit about where things can slot, and I don't have to make it into a bigger deal than it is. I have not timed cleaning the shower, which is my least favorite household chore, but I will report back to you if I want. Okay.
Please report back.
I really don't want to do it. Can I just not do that? Can I just ask my kids to do that?
There's another tweak in the book called delegation.
Totally. Oh, I'm fully involved with that. Okay, 2 more. Time confetti.
Oh, these are kind of what you just talked about. These little bits of minutes that we think are just throwaway minutes.
Right.
That we can incorporate things into our lives, right? The 7 minutes here, the 10 minutes here. When we reframe things as time confetti, it's like this little pop of joy that we can add to our days. And that's where I'm talking about, like, when you know what makes you happy, when you have those breadcrumbs of gratitude, then you can take those little breadcrumbs and make them confetti in those little minutes of your day. For me, I love walking. I love meeting a fellow neighborhood walker. If we were in the same neighborhood, we'd
see
be
each other all the
high-fiving.
time. Totally.
Right? But again, like if I have 7 minutes, I'm like, I'm gonna scoop the loop real quick.
Yep.
Right?
It's great.
Little
Confetti.
bit.
I love that idea. Okay, finally, hidden minutes. And we've kind of talked about this, but tell me what you think about hidden minutes.
Well, these are the minutes that you just don't think that you have, right? But they're there, right? Planning is imperative, right? Here's the thing. You think, again, things take longer than they do, but they're there. And if we can plan things out and we can see where we have minutes in our weeks and our days, we can plug things in. I just think it's so important. So look for those hidden minutes. They're there. They're like little treasure on an island. And when you find them, you're going to guard them with your heart.
I loved your examples of kind of getting scrappy in the carpool lane or before things, after things, when I think as a culture, we've started to kind of sit back and think, well, I'll just scroll. I'll just take out my phone. I'm the weirdo who I really like to have a hardcover book with me in a line. Either I'm going to talk to the cashier or I'm just going to read a book, because I've found that I keep losing out on time reading an actual book, but just because I'm picking up my phone as a reflex. So that's 2026 for me. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, do you have more?
Well, no, I was just going to say, I've challenged myself not to pick my phone up in line and to talk to the person next to me. So I'm the crazy just like an encouraging word or something, because I just think the world needs a little bit more encouragement.
Yeah. A little. Yeah, I'm with you. Okay, last question on the tweak situation. Tell me about the temptation to over tweak. Okay. You kind of move into this sphere a little bit in the book, and I want to follow up on it. We have the ability, speaking of our phones, to click one like on Instagram about fitness or reading or scholarship or recipe or yo-yo technique. And suddenly we have 199 more suggestions without even moving off of our chair of how we do that better. So I'd like to know, because you are suggesting a different way, how do we know when to shut off the faucet of information? How do we know when the tweak is enough? We can stop looking for the tweaks. And I mean, I think that's a process, right?
Yep.
And I'm sure you've talked about this even in the marketing of this book and the publicity of this book. How do you help people to listen well and also to know when, no, that's enough. You're on the right track. Move forward.
I think that's my greatest fear when it comes to this book. And I hope and I think that's the biggest caution I'd have is when people read the book, not to say, I'm going to do it all without discretion, because that's not the point. The point is to tweak the things that aren't working. But sometimes we have in this culture, this incessant need to iterate to the point of just perfection, right? Like if I could like it could just be a little bit better, right? And you can hear it in my voice, just that like, oh, right? If it's working, you don't need to tweak it, right? This is where, say like 5 days ago, I didn't need to change the alarm on my phone. It was working. We're only tweaking things when things start to feel wonky. And so you have to, I think the thing that we have to get better at, and it's hard because life is full and it's moving really quickly, is stopping and becoming self-aware. One of my favorite phrases that I say all the time is awareness is our superpower. And so I always say this, before you start anything, ask yourself, why am I doing this? Why? Is it because I saw it on Instagram and I have the fear of missing out? Or is it because it's gonna help make this difficult, kind of clunky thing a little bit easier? If it's number one, hard no. If it's number two, well, then try it. But I think that we have to get away from this, like making our life as perfect as possible. That's not what this book is about. No. This book is about loving the life that you already have because it's beautiful and it's imperfect and it's perfectly you, but you can tweak your way to a life that you love, not what the world says.
It's very good. Yep. You don't, just as an early reader response, this book does not sound like a mandate for perfection at all. It does not sound like that. It sounds like a call to steeping our toes into the good things we already have. And that when things are, as you say, clunky, there are tiny changes we can initiate to make it less clunky. It's very practical. Yeah. You did a great job. Well done, Erin.
Well, thanks.
Before I let you go, I have a question that I always ask my guests, which is, it's a two-parter, and it's all about books. So we've already talked about how we'd like to read. You wrote about this, and I talked about how I'd like to read more this year. Can you think of a book that you have recommended many times over the years that was just a really instrumental book for you, or something you really loved? And it could be absolutely frivolous and ice creamy, or it can be something very deep, whatever you want, anywhere on that continuum. And then is there a book that you're excited to read sometime in this new year?
Okay. Well, in the ice cream love rom-com, I love all books by Sarah Adams. I love a good series. Okay. So, she's
perfect.
She's a closed door romance, which I love.
Does that mean no saucy?
Yes.
No one's naked.
I mean, I would say it's like a notch up from Hallmark, right? There's, I don't need, she coined that, which I really like. And she also does this thing where she kind of like gives you a little heads up on anything that might be triggering to you, which I kind of appreciate.
Yeah.
Like the last one I read, she was like, this book depicts panic attacks. I did my best job based on personal experience. Anyway, I like that.
Great.
So
Sarah Adams. Okay. Wonderful. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. And then, so I think that kind of answers both, but then the other book that, I'm reading right now that has been instrumental that I've been recommending to everybody is Garden City by John Mark Comer.
Oh, yes. I've heard very good things about that book.
And the reason I love it is because when I started Simple Purposeful Living as a Christian woman, Simple Purposeful Living is for all busy women. I feel strongly that everyone deserves to tiny tweak their life. But there was some pushback that I should do sacred, right? Like there is something more special or, about sacred work. And I was more in the self-promotion. Like if it's not for just Christians, like, is it worthwhile? Okay. So I got that early on.
You can understand where my blood pressure is right now when you're talking, but go ahead.
And so John Mark Comer really just like disentangles that. Right. He actually says, which I really appreciate in the book, that idea of sacred work being more special than secular work was probably dreamt up by some egotistical pastor that needed to feel better about himself. But this idea that your vocation matters to God, right? And it can iterate in different seasons of your life. I've always loved helping people. I was a first grade teacher. Then I went into administration. I stayed at home and was a homemaker and mom. And now I run a business and help people simplify their life. I have always loved, God wired me to love people, to serve people, to help people. And that matters to God greatly. And so I thought it was so vindicating for some of the words that had been spoken over to me as a woman. kind of in this role. I just love it. Recommend it.
Wonderful. Garden City. I've heard only good things about that book, and I would just heartily endorse the idea that work is sacred. If God gives it to you, it's sacred. You don't need it to have a cross on top of it or some creepy sticker.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you, Erin. Thank you so much for joining me. Before I let you go, I have got to ask you, what's written on the back of your hand? I love it that you are an organizational guru, but you are a handwriter. You don't have to tell me what it says, but I really love it that you are writing on the back of your hand.
I have always been a handwriter. Have you ever been a handwriter?
Oh, heck yes. And of course you have to do the outside, not the inside. You'll wash that off. So what's happening here? Are you going to forget some stuff?
So I actually told my kids on Saturday, ironically, that I'm thinking of getting a tattoo that says to-do list on the top of my wrist. Okay, here's a tiny tweak. Okay, so I get up in the morning before my kids. I have my quiet time. I do not bring my phone because it is a distraction that I do not need. However, as I am going through my Bible study,
you think of stuff
and praying, you think of stuff.
Yes.
People that I want to check in on, right? Like that friend that I'm praying for that's going through cancer treatment. I'm like, I don't want to forget to so it says, reach out to Alicia, make sure I text my connection group girls,
awesome.
schedule the February date I want to have with Scott. It's literally my to-do list from my morning time.
I love this. You have a business dedicated to paper products, but you know what? There's nothing like a little flesh for a Post-it note. So
I need to share it because people always ask me, awesome. Like, what's on your hand?
That's so great. Well, thank you. And thank you for your Post-it hand. Thank you for being willing to tell me about that. And I'm just so grateful you had time today to chat, Erin. I wish you all the best with Tiny Tweaks Happy Life. I think you're going to really help a lot of people get unstuck in a really simple and practical way. So kudos to you and Godspeed.
Well, thank you, my friend. And yay, we rode that horse together. We ripped that Band-Aid off.
We did it.
Proud of you. And again, I'm so grateful for your encouragement at all the right places in my life. Truly.
Total joy.
We never get where we're going alone. And that verse in the Bible that no one is immune to discouragement. So encourage heartily. Do it. Always.
Love it.
If you have a kind word to say it. You're a good example of that.
Oh, thank you, Erin.